Hi guys, this is Elizabeth. I know the episode is going up a little bit late this week, but that is because so much has happened since our last episode. We feel like it would be irresponsible of us not to address it, since we do happen to have a public platform here. We are lucky enough to, because you guys still listen to us, and we wanted to make sure we addressed all of these issues correctly. So, to start off with, we believe here at This Is Lit that no matter who you are, how much money you've made, what book you have written, and what it meant to other people, we do not stand for or support any kind of turf rhetoric. We support all members of the LGBTQ and queer community here, and we've always wanted this podcast to be a safe place for that community and for open and honest discussion about that community. Now, we read to experience the lives of others, and through reading, we are able to treat others with compassion and understanding. Therefore, we are shocked and appalled and disgusted at the acts of police brutality that have been happening across the United States of America, especially when those acts involve minorities. So here at This Is Lit, we stand with the Black Lives Matter movement and the protests that are going on across this great country. So we hope for the changes that we so deeply need happen. And the status quo has been maintained for far too long. And change is coming, whether these people like it or not. So everyone out there, keep going, stay strong. Happy Pride, everyone, and we wish all of you to stay safe and to stay healthy. On that sobering note, on with the show.
Welcome to This Is Lit, a podcast where we drink and talk about our favorite books. I'm Paul.
And I'm Elizabeth, and welcome to a special honeymoon edition of This Is Lit. Cheers. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. As you have probably noticed, Casey is not joining us today because that wonderful human being got married 2 days ago, so we're still keeping the party going. So we have a special guest host today. It is
Miss Evelyn.
Yes, Miss Evelyn, my firstborn child. Her sister is asleep in the bouncy chair. For now. So we better do this quick. But the special guest host is my lovely husband, Paul.
Hello.
So, first off, how we do this is, Paul, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a Kansas City Pils, or KC Pils, from Boulevard Brewing Company here in local Kansas City.
As am I. So, I know, normally I'm a wine person, but I do enjoy beer as well. So I'm having a beer today. I think this is the first time I've ever had a beer on the podcast.
Supporting local businesses.
Yes, support local.
Probably my influence with the beer.
Probably. All right, so we read this week The Last Wish by, say the name please.
I don't know. How do you say it?
Andrzej Sapkowski.
Andrzej Sapkowski?
Yes, that!
So yeah, Andrzej Sapkowski. So,
yes.
Yep.
Which is the very first Witcher book. So sweetheart, what was your first exposure to Geralt of Rivia, the Witcher?
So, I guess it was seeing the commercials and stuff for The Witcher 3, the video game, and I was like, well, that looks interesting, and so I started looking into it, and saw that it was, the third one, so there were, 2 other previous ones and stuff, so it was the video games, which I think a lot of people, especially a lot of people outside of Poland, were originally exposed to the Witcher series by the video games, which were done by CD Projekt Red, which they made a name for themselves as well with doing these video games and stuff that drew from the books from Andrzej Sapkowski wrote. So
now you've played the first Witcher. Does it follow the novel at all, or is it a completely different story?
I played the first two, and we need to upgrade our computer for me to play the third one because it's just it's older, and so the graphics card doesn't work. So I haven't played the third one, which is like the big one that everyone knows about. But I played the first two, and the story is more of a continuation, I guess.
Okay.
After the last of the books. And so it's not an adaptation. It's a completely different story, but they use the different. They use the same characters.
Yeah. What's the current last one? Sword of Destiny or Season of Storms?
I think it's the Season of Storms.
Season of
I don't
Storms?
know. I haven't read all of them yet. I'm not sure.
For those of you who are not on video, that lovely noise was my daughter Evelyn, who has figured out how to blow raspberries this week. Yes, she wants to be on the podcast too.
She is on the podcast.
Woo! It's very exciting.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, and my first exposure to The Witcher was the TV series that recently came out on Netflix. I have to say that Henry Cavill did not do it for me as Superman, but he does it for me as Geralt.
It's the wig. It's the white
I was going to
wig.
go with the skin-tight leather pants and the swordsmanship skills. Swordsmanship is hot.
Fair enough.
Evelyn agrees.
So a little more on the author there. So as we kind of mentioned, it is Polish. He is Polish. It was originally written in Polish, and so the book, it was a translation. I don't think the author actually speaks very much English at all after seeing interviews and stuff, or I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, so it's it's not originally written in English, but in my opinion, I think it adapted very well. So kudos to the
kudos
translator
to
for that.
The Last Wish is a very unique novel in that it's a series of short stories tied together through one main story, which is called The Voice of Reason. But through The Voice of Reason, it uses that main narrative to tell several other narratives.
So the background on it was the author, Andrzej Sapkowski, entered the first short story called The Witcher into a fantasy writing competition for a fantasy magazine. And so that was the first short story that he wrote. I think he won like third place or something like that. But then he went on to keep writing more stories. So there were short stories that were being published in magazines and stuff. And so the first book here, called The Last Wish, is a collection of the first 6 of those stories, with the overarching or framing story that was called The Voice of Reason.
Yeah, if you saw the TV series, I think the first 3 or 4 episodes are in this book, which is why a lot of people said the narrative with the TV series was a little confusing because of the timelines.
Right.
But they kind of had to do it that way, and that's kind of the best way they had to tell the story to get everybody where they needed to be for the first book, the first full novel, which is the next book.
Yeah, the first set of stories mainly focuses basically Geralt and only Geralt,
yes.
And then they slowly start introducing other important characters as it goes on.
Yeah, and
probably where he's coming up with new characters for the different stories, and I guess would be interesting.
So this book starts out with The Witcher, the short story, where Geralt is tasked with curing a strega. Now,
he wasn't. Well, I guess tasked, but he was hired. So as a Witcher, his job, his profession is going around and slaying monsters professionionally.
Yes, and this is
getting paid for it. So
Witchers are kind of they're not really human. They're mutants. They're
human.
Purposely mutated to have heightened senses, faster reflexes, and it is something that these young boys do from childhood. And most of these children are orphans or children of destiny.
Right.
Which is tackled in a later story.
So, yep.
But the first story is the townsfolk want to get rid of this strega because it's if you don't know what a strega is, it's a version of a vampire. It is, they hunt, they feed, and a strega is created. Yes, at night. At night. Daylight, no good. But a strega comes from the mother being cursed and the baby being born after the mother has passed.
So that is what a striga is, and there's a particular story behind where this striga came from.
Yes, incest.
So
Spoiler alert.
The king, his name is Foltest. He
stooped his sister.
Yes, he had an affair with his own sister and got her pregnant, and the resulting pregnancy wound up with both the mother and turns out to be a daughter wound up dying. And
so this strega is also a princess.
Her name was Ada. Yes, Princess Ada. But so a traveling wizard or someone had at one point told King Foltest that the curse could be lifted and he could get his daughter back. So he kind of latched onto that, and so that's what the reward is for, is not to kill the strega, but to lift the curse. And so there's a job to do in Vizima, and Geralt of Rivia shows up, and he makes himself known that he is a man of business by killing 3 brigand kind of guys in a local tavern.
To be fair, they started it.
And immediately drew attention to himself, and so he gets his meeting with King Foltest to discuss the terms and agreements for dealing with the Striga. And King Foltest comes to him later and basically says that if Geralt is not able to lift the curse, then he has the king's permission to go ahead and kill her and be done with the whole affair.
Yeah, but he's going to act real pissed if he does, even though he gave him permission.
So he basically is like, I'm going to let you off the hook and you're not going to get murdered if you wind up killing the princess.
Yeah.
So.
And the only way to break the curse of Strega is to have someone remain in the castle and keep the Strega out of their crypt past sunrise.
Yes, after the third cock crows.
Yes.
Or third crowing of the rooster.
There's a lot of male-dominant language in this book. Because in the book it does say cock.
So basically, and then another guy, some dude, his name was Lord Ostit, comes in and tries to convince Geralt to fail at his task so that Striga remains, and because he's trying to overthrow
the king. Yeah.
And basically Geralt uses him as bait originally, locks him up, and at midnight when the Striga comes out, this guy who's trying to overthrow the king winds up getting first eaten and lets Geralt get the jump on the Striga. And they fight, and it winds up being that
Geralt hides himself in her crypt until sunrise, so that way he stays safe and away from her, and she stays out of the crypt.
Yes, and he uses, this is the first showing that Geralt has magical abilities. He magically seals himself inside the crypt so the Striga can't open it up and get to him in there and get back inside.
Yeah.
So it actually works, and the curse is lifted, and she becomes a princess again. But right before she completely transforms back into a normal person, she bites him pretty good.
Good. And he bites her back. It's very childish.
Yes. And so he passes out and comes to later and finds out that he was successful. He got paid. King Foltest was good to his word, and this sends back Geralt to after this.
Ninicky
is when he
Ninicky.
What did we agree on? Neneki?
Neneki?
Neneki, I guess.
Neneki?
Gobekli Tepe. So
Nenki.
Ninky.
Ninky.
so this goes back to where he is at in the framing story, the voice of reason. He is at the temple of Melitele.
Sure.
Recovering with the high priestess Nenika, who is friends with them, with Geralt, and so so that explains where he's at during the framing story, and then while he's recovering there in the temple, a couple things happen that kind of lead into the rest of the stories, kind of give a good.
For the second one is the beast, correct? The bear beast castle.
Yes. So they're talking. It's called A Grain of Truth, and there's kind of a this one kind of helps explain a lot of the stories where a lot of these stories have are along the lines of.
Basically, this story is about every fairy tale has a grain of truth to it, and so that is something that I have noticed with all of these vignettes, I suppose, that are in this book, is that every one is kind of like a twisted fairy tale. Like, the Strego was kind of a version of Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah, I could see that.
And this one, The Grain of Truth, is very much kind of a twisted Beauty and the Beast.
So this one starts out with Geralt is traveling along and through a valley and
gets lost in the woods,
right.
Finds a mysterious abandoned castle.
Well, he finds some bodies. He finds some bodies first.
Yes, bodies first.
And he's like, "This
is a dark blue rose."
Right. So this is not a normal, like, these people weren't attacked by brigands or something.
Their heads are missing.
And so Geralt deduces that it was probably a monster, and then therefore he might be able to.
Oh, this is also our first introduction of Roach.
Yeah,
the horse.
his bestie Roach.
Yeah.
His horse.
Forget Dandelion.
So, and so he comes a little while later across this manor that has a beast come out and attack him and try to scare him off.
And he's like, no, I'm good.
And it does not have the desired effect on Geralt, because he's like, this is my bread and butter, baby.
Yeah.
You don't need to
scare me.
And so it turns
like, you don't
out,
seem like an actual monster. You just seem like a guy with real bad luck.
Yeah, so it turns out the monster is actually Nivellen, and he is actually another cursed human. So 2 stories, 2 not actual monsters per se, but cursed people. So turns out he had kind of led a band of brigands for a little bit that,
landed him in some hot water. He pissed off a priestess, and
well,
then suddenly he's cursed.
Are we going to beat around the bush about it?
He rapes a priestess, and then he's cursed. So yeah, totally deserves it.
Yeah, so she cursed him to being, a beast until someone was able to lift the curse, and he forgot the details behind it. So. And
then people heard there was a beast. They remembered an old tale about true love lifting a curse, and so all his people would send their daughters to him, and he would send them back with gold and riches and stuff after the daughters had stayed a year. And so he's like, no, it's good. We make friends, and, I just have, like, kind of a turntable of women and stuff, but he's like, there is somebody else here that lives with me right now.
Yeah, his current paramour.
Yes.
He is a little bit different, and he has.
She's not exactly a merchant's daughter.
So after spending the night, being hosted by Nivellen, Geralt decides to move on, even after asking, like, hey, there's some.
You want me to lift this curse for you?
There's something different about your current lady. I saw her in the woods, and the deaths of the merchant outside there. So he's so Geralt goes on his way, and a little while later, how'd it go?
Roach. He's the bear man at one point said, "Animals like me," and when they arrived, a roach freaked the hell out.
Yeah,
and so then Geralt realized, oh my gosh, something's not right.
So after Geralt kind of turns back around real quick. And confronts what what turns out to be a bruxa,
Thank you. I was trying to
which
remember the word. It's a certain type of
another type of vampire.
Yeah, it's like a it's like a different species of dog. They're all dogs, but there's a Chihuahua is different than a pit bull.
Right, and so
this is the pit bull of vampires. I think that might be the name of the episode.
So Geralt winds up confronting her because she's been killing innocent people and stuff, and it's
she's
his
been
job
killing
to
the merchant daughters that have been coming to the
yeah.
castle.
So they start fighting. Geralt pulls out his silver sword, which I don't think we mentioned before, but he has a silver sword to fight with monsters with. And
iron sword for everything else, silver sword for monsters. Yes, Charlotte.
and
we'll get you a silver sword, love.
So
a little small to use it now.
Verena, it turns out, is the name of the bruxa, and she starts getting one up on Geralt, but then Nivellen appears and actually helps and drives a stake through Verena and winds up as being the one to kill her. And while that's happening, she admits that she does actually, in fact, love Nivellen, and it was true love, and that with the spilling of her blood was able to lift the curse on Nivellen, and then he turns back into a normal person. Which, damn, that guy has it rough, had to kill his own love of his life to get turned back into a normal person. But then on the other hand, he did kind of deserve to get...
He totally deserved to be cursed. He was not a good person.
Not like in Beauty and the Beast, where he's just... The Disney version of Beauty and the Beast, where he's just kind of mean to a...
the original version of Beauty and the Beast, he is, like... It's even, like, it's a million times worse. If you want to know the real story, there is a birthday episode that I did in, like, the first year of this podcast.
Way back in the past times.
Way back in the past times before we figured out all our sound issues. So if you're interested, and also, too, listening to me and two of my friends get real drunk. And I believe there was a point about lamb condoms.
That doesn't happen in this house
Not
anymore.
in this house.
The whole getting drunk part.
No, we have 2 babies. It doesn't happen.
No, it's...
we are also now...
we don't have time.
Yeah, if you're listening, we've also been joined by Lottie, the other baby.
Yes.
My youngest child.
Don't worry. Evelyn is still here.
Yes.
She is just sleeping now.
She is a sleepy baby burrito.
She was fighting it hard, but she's here.
Okay, and so then we move on to the third vignette. Well, between the second vignette and the third vignette, the Knights of the White Rose or whatever come to Nenneke and are like, you need to get rid of the Witcher. And she's like, make me.
Yeah, this is where you wound up really liking that.
I adore her.
Yeah, so it's some Knights of the Order of the White Rose show up, and they're, talking about that Geralt is a mutant and a non-human, and they're persecuting non-humans. So, yeah, he needs to get out of the realm.
And she's like, he's my guest, and him being here is none of your business. So get the hell out of my temple.
Yeah, she threatens to stop sending
healers.
Love potions to.
And love potions. Yeah, she
dukes.
tells the prince, she's like, if he wants to have an heir, tell him that he needs to let me do my shit in peace, or else he's not getting his happy little helper.
Yeah. So.
And like some kid tries to give her lip, and she's like, I helped birth you. Shut your mouth.
Yeah, and so they throw out one of Geralt's many aliases, the Butcher of Blaviken.
Yes.
And that is the introduction to the third short story.
Which was the first episode of the TV series.
Yes, The Lesser Evil. And this was the one that had probably some of the best quotes, or the most
it really did.
Philosophical quotes
of
any of the stories. So, and if you've seen the show, this is the very first episode.
Yeah, this is a very twisted version. It's a very dark, even more twisted version of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Yes. So... So basically, Geralt arrives in the town of Blaviken and he killed a monster. And
they're like, the local wizard will pay for it.
Yep, referred him to the local wizard, and he shows up and winds up. Geralt knows this wizard.
Yeah,
and,
Stregobor.
They have great names in this.
They do.
Book. They're not the standard fantasy names. Well, I feel like Stregobor is probably fairly. I can see that
It's
being
very
in a.
Gandalfian.
Yeah, Stregobor. But anyhow, so he has a problem. He's
there in hiding, and he is hiding from
Renfried. Or Shrike.
Yes,
and,
who used to be a princess.
Yes, she also used to be a princess.
But Stregbor believes that Renfried was born under the black sun during an eclipse.
Yep.
So she is cursed to sow destruction wherever she goes. And, bathe the rivers of blood and all that kind of thing. And so when she is a child, Stregbor and her stepmother start kind of plotting what to do with her. And then they also make reference to starting to put all these girls in towers just to see if the curse takes hold or not. And so then a lot of them just stop eating, which is a reference to like Rapunzel reference. But basically Stregbor says, he's like, you didn't see it, I autopsied some of the girls that we killed, and which he's like, they're different, they're mutants, and Geralt's like, what the hell, I'm a mutant.
Yeah, ironically, he's asking a mutant to help him with his problem with his
because
mutant.
He's like, they're not human, you should be able to kill them as a witcher. And Geralt says, you know what, no, this is your problem, I'm not getting involved. And then he meets Renfried.
Oh, well, before we go there, I'd like some of the quotes from there.
Oh, yes, please do.
When they were talking about the prediction or the prophecy, Geralt says, nonsense, said the Witcher. And what's more, it doesn't rhyme. All decent predictions rhyme.
Rhyme.
Yeah. And then another one of my quotes that was more philosophical and dealing with even up to this day was when they were talking about, whether the prophecy was true or not didn't matter because, quote, they weren't lying. They firmly believed it all, which doesn't change the facts. So
just because you believe something doesn't mean it's a fact.
Yeah.
Which is very pertinent for this day and age.
Yeah.
I believe like the last interlude was when Neneki had the good quote of, that's the first time I've ever heard a lack of faith accomplishing anything.
Right. But so, back to this story was Geralt refuses to help Stregobor, and he winds up running into the girl who is known as Renfried.
And he basically tells her, give up your revenge.
She does the same thing. She's like, okay, well, I know you met with Stregobor. You can get into his tower.
Kill him for me.
I want you to kill him for me. So it turns out they're kind of at an impasse because Stregobor is up in his tower, and no one can get in there because he has it magically sealed that you can only let people in. The only people that can get in are the ones who he lets in. So Renfried's trying to convince him to go kill Stregobor.
It's a very old idea in Magic, the idea of a threshold.
Right.
That's why vampires can't come in unless they're invited.
And so, Renfried is trying to reason with, Geralt.
She talks about how Stregbor is the monster in this story.
And
about what he did to her, because they said, he's like, well, we sent her off with this huntsman who's supposed to kill her, and Stregbor was like, yeah, he was charmed by her and let her go, and she cut his throat, and she's like, yeah, he raped me first. Did he tell you that as well?
We missed the part.
Yeah.
When he was originally talking with Stregobor, he tries to convince Geralt by saying, you kill the girl, which is one murder, versus if she grows up to being a she-devil murdering thousands of people, it's a lesser evil to kill her now than having all those deaths later on.
Yeah, and Geralt says he doesn't believe in lesser evil, there is only evil. Yeah,
the quote is, lesser, greater, middling, it's all the same. Proportions are negotiated, boundaries blurred. I'm not a pious hermit, I haven't done only good in my life, but if I'm to choose between one evil and another, then I prefer not to choose at all. So,
which is still a choice.
Unfortunately, yeah, it's still a choice. You can't be 100% neutral on everything, because even if you choose to be neutral, you still have made a choice. So,
inaction is still a choice.
Yeah. So, they goes on, so he's not going to help either one.
No.
But there's been like some references to some other incidents
that happened where this band of brigands entered a town, and until they got what they wanted, they just started slaughtering townspeople, innocent people. And
so Geralt figures out that that's what Renfri's plan is. She has a group of men with her that they're going to show up on market day and start killing innocent civilians until Stregobor comes down from his tower. So
to his death, which, what we know of Stregobor, he is a proud man. That whole town would be dead.
Yeah, I would assume that Stregobor would just be like, they're all going to die, I guess.
Sucks. So maybe they should have thought of that before they were peasants.
Yeah, probably. So anyhow, so Geralt figures that out, and the next day, market day, he winds up going to the market first.
Yes.
Before all the townspeople start showing up.
And he takes care of...
He brutally...
He becomes the butcher of Blaviken.
Destroyed, like, it's not even a fair fight. I mean, Geralt's a mutated human with
been trained to fight
ridiculous powers and heightened senses and everything.
But basically, Geralt wasn't certain that they were going to do that.
Right.
He figured they would, and it was the lesser evil.
Right, the lesser evil for him to just take care of the 6 brigands and then wind up, he does kill Renfri as well. And so...
He offers Renfri a chance, though. He offers her a chance.
He does, and she's dead set.
She still wants it. And then Stregobor is like, great, well, autopsy the body. And Geralt is like, don't touch her.
Yeah. Yep, and so... basically, the
townspeople only saw Geralt attack these brigands with no prompting.
Like, it's like a weird, creepy mutant that they don't like to begin with shows up and starts murdering
murdering people. Not very nice people, but still.
Yeah. So, what's to stop him from doing that to them next or whatever?
So they basically run him out of town.
So basically, he chose the lesser evil in his mind, and he got punished for it because he was never, he was run out of town. So
that whole story is basically, there is the evil of killing Stregobor, there is the evil of killing Renfri, and then there is the evil of killing innocent people. And those are all evils, and we all have to decide for ourselves which one is the greater one and the lesser one, and we're not always going to agree.
Right.
So it's just that whole story was about Geralt being in an impossible place and making an impossible decision.
Yeah. And on a lighter note, I did like the reference about Renfri taking shelter with 7 dwarves.
Yes, 7 dwarves.
And then she convinced them that it was more profitable to
go
into banditry than working in the mines.
And they're like, cool, girl, we got you.
That's pretty funny.
I want that kind of supportive relationship in this family.
Well...
Charlotte, if you decide to become a brigand, we'll see what we can do. Do you know 3 more people? What am I talking about? You're Captain Casey, you'll join us.
So then that's the end of book 3.
Yes, and then the interlude, Geralt is talking to
Iola, who is a mute at the temple.
She's a mute priestess.
That Nenica has been trying to get. She can prophesize.
She's been trying to get Geralt to do a reading, and so Geralt just talks to her, even though she will not respond. And he makes a mention of a child.
Yeah, how he grew up.
Yeah.
He grew up. He was destined.
He was a child of destiny.
Right, and he was given over to the Witcher school to be raised into a Witcher, and that brings up the next short story called A Question of Price.
Which this is Rumpelstiltskin-esque.
Yes, I was going to say it's probably the most important book, or the most important short story for the overall series going on because of what happens here and what that has the implications for that going into the future
for the rest of the
for Geralt series. And basically the entire world.
Yeah.
So
Geralt is summoned to the court of Queen Calanthe during a feast where her daughter Pavetta, thank you. Her daughter Pavetta is to be given, her hand is to be given away in marriage.
So yeah, it is the royal house of Sintra is the kingdom that Queen Calanthe is the queen of.
Which Queen Calanthe is, I love her and hate her in equal measure.
She's the badass warrior queen.
She is. Boudica!
Yes. So yeah, they're at the feast, and you get the round table introduction of a whole bunch of new characters and stuff.
That all have very Celtic names.
The names in this story are ridiculous. So
Kudukak?
there's. I think there's like one guy named Gobekli Tepe. Mousesack. But there's a lot of Gobekli Tepes in this one. Gobekli Tepe? so anyhow, so there's a bunch of...
the name of this episode to Gobekli Tepe.
there's a bunch of different people there that are vying for Pavetta's hand. And in the middle of it, a one particular knight shows up that demands that he has the what's it called?
Right
he's there to claim the
he claimed the law of surprise.
Yes, it's the law of surprise,
because he saved the king's life before he passed away, and he said, "I grant you the law of surprise. What I don't know I have is yours when I return." This is also a major trope in a lot of fairy tales. It's, you will succeed in this, but you have to kill the first creature you see upon returning home. You have to kill the first person you see upon returning home.
Yeah.
You can do this, but I demand your firstborn child. That kind of a thing.
Rumpelstiltskin.
Yes.
So
if you may become the princess, and I'll teach you how to turn straw into gold, but I want your firstborn child.
Yep. And so it turns out what that law of surprise would give to him would have been Pavetta.
Yes, because the king returned home to find Calanthe in labor.
Yep.
So the thing he didn't know he had when he made that promise was a child.
His daughter.
Yes.
His only daughter.
Yes, and the only heir to the throne.
Right. So Calanthe is having none of this.
No. So, yes, she is trying to form an alliance between this country with her daughter's marriage.
Right.
And
so she knew about it.
She knew about it.
No, so Calanthe knew that this was probably going to come up, and that's why
is why she had the Witcher. And she's like, "Let us see your face." And he's like, "It is for an oath and honor. I cannot take my helmet off before the last strike of midnight."
It turns out that is because, once again,
he's cursed!
He's cursed!
Yay! He's like a hedgehog
guy.
He's a hedgehog man.
And so
Calanthe fakes a midnight toll bell. He takes his helmet off. Everyone sees he's cursed. Everyone loses their shit. Big battle ensues. And Geralt takes the side of the cursed knight.
Well, and he's a proponent of the law of surprise because that's how normally they become witchers. Right.
And it's also like, if something happens by the law of surprise, that is destiny, and you cannot fight destiny.
Yeah, you shouldn't fight destiny. So
no, bad things happen when you fight destiny.
So they
which, if you've seen the TV series...
So everyone jumps up. Calanthe orders the death of, his name is Urchion of Erlenwald. Once again, go back later. So she orders that Urchion should be killed, and so everyone starts attacking him, but Geralt and another guy and Mousesack are,
who's a wizard.
They're protecting him.
Musaka or something like that, but it's spelled
Mousesack. It's Mousesack. So anyhow, so they start, but then something strange starts happening. There's like a force, like a vortex thing that starts happening. Magical. And it turns out that it's Pavetta who can't control her magic, but she's so upset with everyone attacking
the love of her life
that she starts kind of protecting him, which is destroying the entire
everything else.
Yeah, destroying the entire room and everyone in there. So Mousesack and Geralt team up together to calm her down, stop her, and they succeed.
Yes, and then Mousesack mentions, "Oh yeah, that ability doesn't come out unless you're not a virgin anymore."
So
she's 15.
So they stop the different times.
I don't care. I don't care.
Well, they were trying to
I
auction
didn't have
her.
boobs when I was 15.
Her grandmother was trying to auction her off that very night.
That's still not okay.
Just saying. This was the story. So, yes. So basically, after all that, Queen Calanthe, agrees like, I shouldn't have tried to step my foot in it. This really was destiny.
Yes,
obviously.
I will give you my daughter. I'm going to marry this one guy who I have loved, and I will act according to my own happiness. Therefore, we still have that alliance. Witcher, you have done what I wanted to at the end of the night. My daughter is married off. I have an alliance. What do you want? He's like, I want your green sash to remind me of your eyes, and she gives him her emerald necklace. And then the knight is like, I owe you. You saved my life.
And got me the
woman that I love.
Right. And so Geralt, for payment from Urcheon...
He says, you have to understand, my profession is dying out, but there are so few of us, I'm going to have to invoke the law of surprise.
And ask for that which you already have, but do not know.
Yes. And then everyone's like, but are you pregnant?
Yes. And she confirms that the two lovers have been seeing each other for about a year.
Yeah, and
she's
late.
Yep. So that's where the story ends.
Ta-da! Baby.
Yep. So once again, this was along the lines of Rumpelstiltskin with demanding the first.
Well, Geralt is kind of the Rumpelstiltskin in this situation.
Right. So, but yeah, as you read more or play the games or learn more about the story, you find out it's important later on for future characters and stuff, and the overall storyline kind of starts at this location right here.
Yeah. So it's definitely very important. And then we have a nice little interlude where Dandelion has come to say, my favorite twig bard.
So, a little bit different characterization than in the show.
Different characterization in the book. I love the characterization they took with him in the show. Very D&D bard. I love it. In the book, he's a little bit more of a frat boy.
Yeah.
A little bit more frat. He's like, this is a woman's goddess. People will always be giving birth, and so people will always need the woman goddess.
Yep. So,
what does it say? Dandelion, who fancied himself to be an expert on everything.
Yes. Yep. And so this, with the introduction of Dandelion, they're reminiscing about one of their earlier adventures. They keep the liquor behind
the books in the library.
Yeah.
That's nice.
So so they're reminiscing about one of their earlier adventures, which then brings us to the
toss a coin to your Witcher.
Yes.
Like on my husband's shirt.
Toss a coin to your Witcher.
They don't make baby onesies that say that, but if
not yet. Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. We were talking about Dandelion and his adventure with the goat man.
That's a great way to pronounce his name. Dandelion, not Dandelion.
For he is a dandy.
Dandelion.
He is a dandy.
Yeah. So.
And if he's not, somebody needs to tell him.
Oh, I'm sure he knows. So, this story starts out with Geralt and Dandelion on the road together, and Geralt is looking for some work to help keep them fed, because between the two of them,
no one has tossed a coin to their Witcher for a long time.
Yeah, between bard work and Witcher work,
Witchers get paid more.
They have to tighten their belts a little bit sometimes. So anyhow, they're traveling through a region that
they're in the south. It's very fertile, growing farmland.
Warm, they grow apparently giant, all their food is very bountiful and everything.
They're in Georgia.
Yeah. And of course they talk funny. So anyhow, they're
in Georgia.
They come up and...
No offense to anyone from Georgia.
Yeah, they talked to the town leaders, and apparently there has been a
devil, which
that has been.
We are not doing that to make fun of anybody's accent. That is literally how it is written in the book.
I can't remember the literary term, but it's the same way that, like Mark Twain wrote Huck Finn and stuff, where the writing style
is in the accent.
Right. So, anyhow, there's a devil that's been causing some mischief, and
I think they spelled it Deoval or something like that in the book.
And so Geralt agrees to figure out what's going on with this, and him and Dandelion go out into some fields where the townsfolk have been kind of not. They tried to get rid of them originally on their own and like leaving some iron balls or something, but the devil attacks them and is like slinging the iron balls at him and knocking him and Dandelion around.
Everybody gets conked to the head, especially Dandelion, who likes to complain.
Yeah. So, and it's a
like Evelyn.
Yes.
The food is not coming fast enough.
And the devil, he can talk, and he's actually like some kind of horned goat guy, which is I don't know why they're calling him a devil or
like
whatever.
Pan.
Yeah.
Imagine.
He's like a satyr kind of thing.
Yeah, he's a satyr. He's Pan.
After the incident, when they met the devil, they go back to the village and the chieftain and stuff, and like, hey, ask him, what's up with this? It looks like you guys have already been trying to placate it or something.
And it's not working.
So they bring in the village elder, or the elder lady.
The old lady. With the book.
She has the book that they can't read, but she has it memorized. And she has like a young acolyte or whatever that doesn't talk. And
acolyte is the $5 vocab word of the day, dear. Well done.
Well, I mean, I think I read it somewhere in a book.
Once.
And so it's kind of weird. And Geralt points out that he thinks it's a Sylvan is the term that he has for the particular goat creature guy, and he's an intelligent creature, and so therefore Geralt's not willing to kill him.
Yeah.
But he's still going to try to, instead he's going to try to convince the Sylvan to, move and go somewhere else, so he's not bothering them. So they come to an agreement, and they head out again, Dandelion and Geralt, to confront the devil. And this time, it goes even worse for Geralt and Dandelion. That not only is the devil back, and that they actually get attacked by some horsemen, and Dandelion gets knocked out, and then Geralt gets knocked out. And when they come to...
This plan was not well thought through.
No, not at all. And so when they come to, they realize that they overhear that the Sylvan's name is Torque, and he's talking to some elves. It was actually the elves were some riders that knocked him out. So they're all tied up, and when they realize that their captors have been woke up, the elves come over and start torturing them because... tormenting and torturing them because the elves are being persecuted by the humans, and the humans hate non-humans. So
they're taking out their anger and frustration on the only humans they can reach.
So it then you start learning some more of the background with that like some non-humans like elves, dwarves, halflings, and stuff. They have agreed to, or are trying to assimilate with the human cities and towns and stuff.
So Torque has been like sneaking into the village, stealing grain, farming techniques. Everything that the elves think they need for civilization.
Right, and so he's working with some of the other elves that have not agreed to live with the humans and are off on their own. But apparently elves never had to learn how to farm or anything, so they don't know how that works. So they were using Torque there to kind of figure that out. And that's when you first start learning about the elves hate, elf versus human conflict. That's a central.
It's very
thing.
A human versus non-human conflict.
Yeah,
and that often includes Geralt, but the humans don't want to admit that they need him.
Yeah, I mean they see
it's
him
like
as
they
kind
look
of a
down on you, but we still need you to make society function.
Yeah, Geralt and the Witchers are definitely an outcast because the humans don't like him because they're mutants and therefore not human.
But everything else is like, we're close enough to human.
Right, the elves are like, no, you're still human. So like Geralt doesn't fit in anywhere. The Witchers don't fit in anywhere. So
not even really with other Witchers.
They don't seem to get along unless they're from the same school, I guess.
Yeah.
But the elves
things
leader,
are not looking up for Geralt and Dandelion.
Yeah, the elvish leader comes up and his name is Filavandrel, and basically
Gobekli
Geralt. Yes, his name is Gobekli Tepe. And
if you don't understand, you all need to go listen to a wonderful podcast called Astonishing Legends and their Gobekli Tepe episodes.
It was very interesting. There needs to be a lot more research done on that to figure out how old and everything that is.
Yes, and someone needs to tell Forrest Burgess how to say
Gobekli Tepe. Well, was it Gobekli Tepe?
Gobekli Tepe? Gobekli Tepe?
So
Gobekli Tepe?
Yeah.
Gobekli Tepe.
So Gobekli Tepe shows up, and his name is actually Filavandrel, and him and Geralt wind up having a philosophical discussion about, where everyone kind of fits in the world and, what the elves should really do and whose fault it was that all this came to be and, all that.
Because this story is told after the small vignette where Geralt is lamenting that his career as a witcher, witchers are, putting themselves out of business, so to speak.
Right. So basically it boils down to, and so one of the, they were discussing like how they don't fit in the modern world, either the elves or the witchers, and Geralt's line says, quote, "I manage because I have to, because I've no other way out, because I've overcome the vanity and pride of being different. I've understood that they are a pitiful defense against being different. Because I've understood that the sun shines differently when something changes. The sun shines differently, but it will continue to shine, and jumping out with a hoe isn't going to do anything." So Geralt has basically, instead of standing up and, fighting for what he sees as the right thing or something like that, he's just basically resigned himself to go with the flow, and when things change, he's just going to adapt the best he can to keep doing what he does.
Yeah, it's very Bear Grylls mentality. Adapt, overcome.
Yeah, so Geralt doesn't have any, grand plans for his life. He's just going to
He's like,
wander
I guess this
around.
is what we're doing now.
Yeah, I wander around and kill monsters for money, and that's what I do. I'm not looking to save for retirement or nothing.
Yeah.
I don't have
what
a 401k.
Retirement? I'm going to do this till I die.
Yeah. It's later in one of the other books, he's like, at some point, there's going to be some monster out there that gets me instead of me getting them, so that's how I die. I'm not going to die of old age, so they don't even know if they can die of old age.
And he ages slower than
Right,
most
part of
humans.
the mutations.
Yeah.
It's never really clear how old Geralt really is, but it's made clear that he's older than, what he looks, and probably older than, what most people might normally live to. So, basically, the elves decide, well, these are dirty humans, and they know too much. They have to die.
You know too much, you have to die. But
Torque comes in to, he has a change of heart, apparently, and jumps in front of the arrows and is like, no, you can't kill them, and it's not really clear as to why. So apparently Torque also kind of knows something else about the this valley that has the big abundance of everything growing and stuff, and basically it was the mute girl, the mute acolyte from earlier shows up all of a sudden to this elvish hideout.
Yes.
And turns out she is the queen of the fields, some kind of,
She's some sort of minor deity.
Yeah, like a minor deity.
Geralt's life is saved by literal divine intervention.
Yes, and she basically comes in and says,
so is Dandelion.
no more fighting. Yeah. No more fighting. The elves need to go. The elvish time.
The time of the elves is
has
over.
passed. Yeah, that kind of deal. And basically telling, having a telepathic conversation with Phil Evandrel, basically telling him that they need to move along.
Yeah, move along. These are not the droids you're looking for.
Well, the elvish time here and this has passed, and the humans have moved in. There's nothing you can do. You're just, if you keep fighting it, you will wind up being exterminated like everyone else has been.
Cause heartache and destruction.
It's best to, move to another place where you can hopefully find some respite.
Peace. Yeah.
And so the elves decide that they were in the wrong, and they bow to the queen of the fields there, and they give. Oh, we forgot they broke his lute.
Yes, they broke Dandelion's lute.
He's broke his
why
lute.
Did you break my lute?
And so as compensation, when they're letting Dandelion and Geralt go, one of the elves gives Dandelion her lute, which was nicer and sounded better sound quality than his old one. So.
Yeah.
They actually, besides being a little beat up, they came out in the positive.
Yeah.
They.
It ended up being a favorable situation for everybody.
Yeah.
The elves.
Geralt got paid because he got rid of the devil.
Because he got rid of the devil.
Yeah. And so
the humans got the valley back to themselves. The elves have a chance at some sort of peaceful life.
And
what fairy tale do you think this is similar to? Because all the other ones have had a pattern. The only thing I can think of with this one is kind of like a Billy Goat's Gruff kind of situation. Trying to get to the field that's on the other side of the bridge.
I've been more inclined to not think of just fairy tales, but with the, human, non-human conflict and the...
You think it's more Tolkien-esque?
No, I'm going to go with more real world,
Yeah.
Because especially in the later books, like one of the terms that gets used a lot with what the humans do to the non-humans in the city and stuff is pogroms, which like that whole like the dominant human race is off.
Well, you said the author was Polish, right?
Yeah, so he's probably he knows a little bit of Polish history and what happened in the early 20th century. So I'm going with something more along those lines was what he started to develop here. So because it definitely gets expanded on in later books.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So yeah, and then this short story ends with Geralt, Dandelion, and Torque sitting around a fire just figuring out where they're going to go next.
Yeah.
So that's The Edge of the World, book 5.
5.
If I can count.
And so then we have another little reprieve.
Yes, going back to the
Voice of Reason, which is the overall story that all these little vignettes are set in.
Yep. So basically they Geralt runs into Neneki again, and he has some money, like part of his payment from helping the Striga issue were some jewels and stuff, and he's wanting Neneka to pass it on to Yennefer for helping with her issues that they're not clear about, but Priestess says, I don't want to get in between the two of you. That's your own business.
Yeah.
We're like making, implying that there's some past between them as a couple that she doesn't want to get involved with. So,
dear friend.
Yes. So that's
spoiler for her later books.
That's the first mention of Yennefer, who becomes very important.
Like there are mentions of Yennefer beforehand, like, her name is mentioned, but it's not elaborated on who she is, and this is kind of the first inkling we get that this is some sort of love interest.
So then, this is the transition to when Geralt met Yennefer.
Ah! Which this story is called The Last Wish, which...
Ding! There's
ding,
the
ding,
title!
ding, ding.
So,
Geralt and Dandelion are hanging out, fishing.
Once again, they're on the road with no money and
so they fish.
need some food. So they're out fishing.
You couldn't buy food, so you'd hunt for food.
Right. So, yep. And what they happen to pull out of the little river is not a fish, but a little vase.
Yeah.
Amphora is the...
Amphora, yes.
Yep, amphora.
If you like Greek and Roman culture, like, it's all the vases with the double handles that they found at Pompeii.
Yep.
So yeah, they pull out an amphora.
It is the Amazon cardboard box of antiquity.
Yes, it is! The Amazon cardboard box of antiquity. I love you so much.
So yep, there's like a weird seal on it, and Geralt's like, we better not mess with this. I think it's a gin,
and Dandelion's like,
oh,
3 wishes, give it to me. Here, let me do it.
So they struggle to open it up, and
Geralt's like, no, and he opens it.
And so a red mist appears, and
Dandelion starts shouting wishes.
He's like,
into the
he knew exactly what he wanted. Like he wanted
knew.
his rival in another town to get murdered, and then he wanted to, like, have a sure thing with, like, some duke's daughter or something like that. And he didn't get his third wish off before the djinn then
started trying
to
strangle him.
Yeah, and so Geralt's probably pretty much overmatched on the djinn. The djinn's like super powerful. Obviously, they can grant wishes and stuff, so they're very powerful. They can bend magic.
Reality.
Yeah. So Geralt is like he.
Oh hell no!
He shouts some like ancient curse exorcism that he learned somewhere, and the djinn
to send the djinn off.
Yeah, the djinn took off
to release it from its amphora and send it off.
He's like, wow, that worked. That's great news.
He's like, oh okay. Oh wait, Dandelion, you're dying.
But Dandelion's in a bad state.
Yeah.
So he drags him to the nearest town to try to get some help, and after not getting let in, and
Geralt takes Dandelion to go and try and find some help, but they go to the nearest town, and the guard says, we cannot let you into the guardhouse, past the guardhouse until it's dawn. And so they stay there the night, and one of the guards
meet some nice elves that are
elves.
assimilated. But anyhow, that's
word.
I mean,
I still hate that word.
I know.
Because of the connotations.
Borg. Anyhow, they find out, so they can get into the city the next morning, and they find out
spellcasters are not allowed in the city except for one.
Right. There is a sorceress in town that is currently staying with
he's like a mayor kind of.
Nah, I can't. What's the freaking term? Like a foreign diplomat sort of thing. So he's
cultural attaché.
He's got diplomatic immunity, and so she can stay with him, and the townsfolk really can't do anything about it.
I'm gonna go with cultural attaché.
Yeah. So this town hates magic users and stuff. So
rude.
But so he goes to find out where she's been staying, and leaves Dandelion in the care of the nice elves that they just met. So he finds out where the sorceress is staying, goes there, and finds no one's at the door or nothing. No. He goes in. There's a few people that are just. Is this the point where he?
The apple juice?
No, there's there is a doorman, and he he's like, oh, how about I ply you with some coin. I'll use some gold to get through here.
Yes, that's it.
Smacks the guy up the head with
the sack of gold.
his coin purse, and knocks the guy out and just saunters in. So, yeah, that's Geralt for you.
I shall ply you with some gold. Here.
And yeah, so everyone else inside is drunk, and he runs into the diplomat who's after some apple juice.
For his
for the lady.
For the lady.
And so he gets the apple juice and going to Geralt's going to now deliver it to the sorceress.
Because the gentleman looking for it sat down and passed out drunk.
Yes. It was the diplomat.
That's how you know it's a good party.
So he goes upstairs and meets Yennefer of Vengerberg.
Yennefer.
And,
with her violet eyes and her dark hair.
Yes, her dark curly hair and the violet eyes that get mentioned all the time. And which
they did a really good job with her eyes in the TV show.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they were
It wasn't Legolas contacts.
Yeah, I feel like in The Hobbit, they tried to do his eyes like digitally
Too
for
much.
some reason, and they just you can't fake eyes digitally. You look creepy and or dead. So
or
anyhow,
both.
I mean, he would have fit. He
dead.
would have fit right in with those guys from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
But, so he meets Yennefer, brings her apple juice, and she doesn't immediately, shoot him with lightning.
Yeah.
Because
she doesn't take to him, but she doesn't kill him either.
Right. So
which is about as good a reception as Geralt can ask for.
And Geralt's immediately smitten with her.
Yes. She's gorgeous. She's powerful. She doesn't smite him on sight.
She is mildly amused by him, and when she realizes he's a witcher, and she's like, "Oh, there's not many around here. I'm going to poke his brain a little bit."
Yeah, I'm curious. It's like finding a rare artifact,
right? And so she proceeds to take a bath, and very seductively, like she's playing Geralt like a fiddle, and Geralt's completely falling for it.
Hey, as a woman, you have to use every advantage you have at your disposal, and if you're hot, go for it.
So Geralt asks Yennefer to help with the dandelion situation.
Yes.
Told her that it was a djinn and stuff, and
she's like, a djinn.
Yeah. She's like,
do tell more.
Of course, I will help.
I would love to help you.
And because she got the information out of Geralt
asked.
that the dandelion apparently only got 2 wishes off, and so she's like, oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So bring him in here, and I'll help you. So.
If you don't know where this is going, I pity you.
So so they bring Dandelion in, and she goes to work on him, and Geralt goes back to.
She goes to work on him.
Well, what? Okay. Proceed.
No, I thought it was a very funny turn of phrase.
Proceed.
Well.
Do you finish the book this time?
I did finish the book.
So
she does. She starts healing Dandelion.
Okay. Yep. And so Geralt goes back to the inn that the Elvish brothers and stuff were renovating to get going and stuff. So.
But when you said she starts to work on him, it made it sound like there was something sexy going on.
Okay. All right. After a little bit. Yennefer, hey, come over, Dandelion's fine.
Come on, he's good.
Geralt wants to see him and to make sure that it's all right, and so anyhow, so Dandelion seems to be fine, but Yennefer won't let Geralt take him to continue healing. She's like, I've got further plans, so thank you for the help, but you must go now. I have other plans for you, Mr. Witcher.
Yes, Mr. Witcher.
And so all of a sudden, Geralt's frozen from a spell.
Yes.
And then he blacks out and
doesn't remember anything. Wakes up in a jail cell because apparently Yennefer had him kill some people that she disagreed with.
No, they didn't. He didn't kill them.
That's true. He dragged him out to the
street
and spanked him.
Yeah. Yes. So Geralt. Yeah. Basically.
I do like Yennefer's idea of revenge. It's a good one.
Yeah. So Yennefer basically co-opted Geralt unconsciously to. Go out and deal some punishment.
This is a great start to a romantic relationship.
Yes, to the group or to the townsfolk that
she drugs him. He blacks out. She uses him for something he would not consent to. Great start to a relationship.
Yeah. Sorcerers.
Sorcery.
But with the whole Stranglemore thing from earlier, it kind of shows you that the sorcerers and stuff, they're not the Merlin type that to go around helping people.
They are not the sage wise old people. They are people who
they're kind of They're jerks.
They are jerks. They are meanie poo-poo pantses who are out for power and don't care who they hurt on the way.
Exactly. So yeah, Geralt's locked up with some other people, and apparently the one elf, Chiridian. Gobekli Tepe. And he's locked up with his elf friend Gobekli Tepe. And
he's returned.
And so one of the guards come in and starts like, oh yeah, you did this taunting. And this, and after Geralt learns the story from the elf guy, and yeah, the guard starts roughing him up and stuff, and Geralt's like, I just wish you would
just burst.
I would just wish you would burst.
And he does.
Yeah, the guard just like a rotten tomato.
Yeah.
That's when I kind of started realizing that it wasn't Dandelion that got the wishes.
Yeah, Dandelion was not the one with the wishes.
It was Geralt that had the wishes.
Because he was the last one to touch the amphora before.
Right. So I think Geralt started to piece that together too a little bit, and then they get out. And there's like a storm coming in, and
storms are coming.
Yeah, there's a storm brewing, and
well, they realize that Yennefer is using Dandelion to lure the djinn back to town,
right?
Because she wants to trap it.
So she thinks Dandelion has the last wish, and so
Geralt has it.
Right, and so she is...
What was his first wish? The second one was the guard.
So they figured it out later, but the first wish was when he did that exorcism or whatever. There was a part of...
He wished the djinn away.
Basically, he talked to Yennefer about it earlier, and she just laughed and was like, oh, that's some, it basically comes out to F off in this thing. So basically, Geralt's first wish was like, I wish you would F off. And so that's the genie did.
He's like, okay, bye.
Yeah, and so that was the first wish. The second wish was for the guard to burst. So he has one more wish, but Yennefer doesn't realize that yet. So she
doesn't realize that Geralt's the one with the wish. She thinks Dandelion still has it.
So she's in the renovating inn with Dandelion trying to trap the djinn, and Geralt and Chiridian goes to talk to the mayor and stuff and the priest and try to figure this out because the storm's getting worse, and then they realize that the djinn's getting trapped by Yennefer, starting to destroy the town, so we got to do something to stop this. And
Yennefer's specialty is portals.
Yeah, so she makes a portal and dumps... She thinks she got Dandelion's last wish in, so she dumps Dandelion back into...
She's like, here, I'm done.
Yeah, and Dandelion's like, she told me to tell you that, Geralt's innocent. He didn't do any of that or whatever.
I wish you all would believe Geralt is innocent.
And so they don't buy it or whatever, but...
and he's like, but I have the wish.
The priest is able to...
And that's very sweet that Dandelion would use his last wish on
Geralt. And Yennefer's not so terrible. She's not just gonna, kill Dandelion or anything. She's like, and she didn't kill Geralt or...
He's more useful alive.
Right, so... But anyhow, so the priest guy holds the portal open so Geralt can hop in and, talk with Yennefer and, convince her to stop because it's not going to work because Dandelion didn't have the last wish, so she's not ever going to be able, the genie's too powerful, she's not going to be able to contain him.
And they have a portal fight.
Yeah, so they have a little bit of portal fighting going on and stuff,
which some would consider foreplay.
And so
it's a very sexy fight.
So it's getting real bad. Yennefer's still trying to capture him and pleading with Geralt to use the last wish.
Yeah.
But Geralt doesn't know what to do because he doesn't want, because it's not going to work out for her to capture the djinn. So he makes the last wish.
Which they never specify what it is.
Right. So you just know that he makes the last wish, and in the rubble, the djinn disperses, goes away, and
and in the rubble of the inn, he and Yennefer are untouched, and she's like, I heard you make your last wish. What possessed you to make that wish? Why would you do that? And she's so touched, but they get a little hot and heavy right there on the floor.
Yeah. So, I think I kind of know what the wish was. Do you have a guess as to what the wish was?
I have a guess, and I think it was, after watching the TV series, I feel like I have a little bit more kind of insight than what's just in this book.
Right.
But I think it was that for Yennefer's fate to be tied to Geralt.
That's what I think is. I mean, I think it's pretty explicitly spelled out in like
because Geralt's a
video
very
games or whatever.
Yeah, Geralt's a very destiny fate kind of person.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be, but it kind of winds up being that way.
It's kind of part of his Witcher raising, I suppose, especially since he himself is a child of destiny.
Yeah. So they wind up and they do it in the rubble.
Hot, heavy.
Yep.
I need you now.
So that's basically how it ends up. The last part.
And that is the start of a very rocky relationship.
Very much so.
Very rocky relationship.
Over years and years and years, because both Yennefer
they're essentially immortal.
Basically, it's implied that Yennefer is older than Geralt is even, so, but she's still like a hot 30-something.
In the TV series, she's supposed to be over 100 and Geralt's supposed to be like 80 or something like that.
Oh, okay.
According to Netflix.
Gotcha. They are very reliable. So that's the last book, but there's still a little bit left.
There's still a little bit less to resolve for the Voice of Reason.
Yes. So Geralt has agreed to, leave, and he's leaving there with Dandelion. He's leaving from the Temple of Melitele. Mm-hmm. And
they run into the Knights.
Yeah, the Knights of the White Rose.
Yes, with whom had warned Geralt to.
Yeah, and the young whippersnapper that was like, oh, I'm going to make a name for myself, and I'm going to fight the Witcher. I'm going to fight the Butcher of Blaviken.
Well, and this puts Geralt into another impossible situation, because if he cannot refuse the duel.
Yes, he has to do the duel. Or they will execute him.
But he cannot touch the person who issued the challenge because he is the prince's favorite.
Yeah, he can't harm the guy who's in the duel, so basically Geralt's screwed.
Yeah, so they're like, this guy basically did this to trap him into just standing there and taking a whaling.
Right.
And so that's just not Geralt's style.
No, so they arm up and... they give Geralt like a blunted sword.
Yeah.
And this is like the ending of Gladiator when they stab Maximus before he fights the Emperor and stuff.
Yeah.
And so what Geralt does is they do a little bit of swordplay, and basically Geralt pushes the knight's sword into his face.
Yeah, he pushes the knight's own sword into his face.
Geralt didn't
harm him or touch him.
Yeah,
the guy did it to himself.
Stop hating yourself. Stop hating yourself.
Yeah, and he did it so hard that it broke his nose.
Yeah, and so the
and they're
the
like,
knights are pissed,
and they're like, oh, well, we can hang him now because he injured this guy. And the guy who was kind of the ref over the duel is like, no, he followed the rules I will execute the prince's rules to the letter, and he followed them. The duel is satisfied. He can no longer continue on, and he didn't touch him.
Yep.
Geralt's free to go.
Yep. So that's how the story ends. That Geralt is pretty good at coming up with inventive ways to
get out of a
supersede.
sticky wicket.
Yes, sometimes. There's other times where he tries his best but fails. So he's kind of a flawed character in that aspect.
That's what makes him human.
Right. Exactly. So, supposedly he, the mutation made him lose all of his feelings and everything.
Feelings for humanity, but
it's not true.
No.
He still, he still has compassion. He still feels love and hate and fear and everything. Yeah. So,
protectiveness,
it's just more of a thing that he goes, it's like, oh, well, when it's convenient for him, he's like, yeah, I'm just an unfeeling Witcher. I don't care,
Yeah.
So.
But at the very end, Iola, the priestess, accidentally touches him and sees his future, and it is covered in blood and badness.
Yes, and she faints. She passes out, and it's bad, and Neneka's like,
don't go, Geralt, and he's like, I have to, and I've seen that before, and that's why I didn't want to do a reading. It's because it's always the same thing.
He's resigned himself to a bloody end. He knows it's going to happen eventually.
He knows it's going to be a bloody end.
You know, he's like, it is what it is. I'm going to continue living my life, and some monster will get me at the end. That is my fate. And, you know, that kind of goes to one of the other quotes. Speaking of all the monsters and stuff, that, quote, people, Geralt turned his head, like to invent monsters and monstrosities. Then they seem less monstrous themselves. So, that's the last wish. All for
justification.
Yep. So, Liz, how many bottles would you give this book?
I really liked it. It was really quick to read just because of all the little vignettes, and especially since like my attention span has been like that long lately. For those of you listening, my fingers are real close together. I'd probably give it 3.5 out of 5. I enjoyed it. I want to read the next one. I don't know when I'll ever get to read the next one. Maybe when I have a commute again.
The second book is the same. It's a collection of more short stories.
Oh, okay, so go real quick.
Right, the first 2 are the short stories, and then the
things that like kept this book from being like an absolute 4 or 5 with me is a lot of the white dude attitude. You know what I'm talking about, especially like the
Polish sausage.
So much sausage. There's so much sausage in this book.
Well, it was clearly written by a man.
Clearly written by a dude.
Some point.
But it's like there's even like I understand like there's a point where he was trying to get characterization across, but the way a lot of men treat the women in this book, like even like the innkeeper who said something about like, you know, a woman doesn't have the final say in my house.
Right.
And he's talking about his wife.
Well, and to that point, of course,
he's I make the decisions and she deals with it.
Right. and then on the other hand, it's a medieval fantasy, and you go to the, you know, medieval viewpoint of, you know, where women should be at and all that kind of stuff. So have conversations about that for days.
Yeah, we could. I mean, but this is a modern novel.
Right.
And so it is something that bugged me.
Yeah, and you know, it's, you know, if it was a medieval, you know, fiction, you know, historical fiction book, that makes sense that all the characters have a certain viewpoint or stuff. Yeah. But, you know, you have more of a license to, you know, with a fantasy you could have, and I feel like with the introduction of the sorceresses and stuff.
Yeah, Yennefer.
In later books, especially expanding upon that, there's more agency given to women and stuff.
Yeah,
a little bit.
And like the people, the women I like most in this book were Neneki, who, you know, didn't take crap from nobody, and Yennefer, even though she's crazy.
Yeah.
And
I think all the sorceresses
are crazy.
And that's kind of what magic does to you in these stories, is that
all magic has a price.
Well, yeah, and you know, you have all this power at your disposal, and it kind of goes to your head a little bit. But you have to give something up.
But it might be your sand. Even like the dude.
Stringobor,
yeah.
Go back to the Tepe.
Yeah, he lost his sanity, I'm sure, and he lost his security. And
you know that dude Mousak? He seemed like a pretty cool dude.
Mousak seemed pretty cool, but he was a druid. He's very into nature.
Smoking that peyote.
But you know, it's and even Geralt, to get power, he had to go through a lot of pain and anguish, and he had to give up his family, his mortality, his every power has a price,
right,
in this book and in this universe.
Yep.
And I loved Calanthe. She was shrewd and calculating, and she was she's not a good person, but she's an excellent character.
Yeah.
How many bottles would you give it, my dear?
I'm a simple man. I don't like fractions, so I'm going to go with a 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. So that gives us a...
And, well, I just think having the background where I already kind of knew the characters from the movies and stuff, or the video games, that it was kind of seeing the background of that, and so I was kind of already invested in the characters and kind of wanted to see where they originated from and where the story progressed and stuff. So, and as I said, it's a very quick read. I think it's very well translated from Polish. So,
kudos to the poor translator who had to do it. And another thing I like this book about, it's really like the whole humans versus non-humans mentality is something we really need to be aware of, even in this day and age.
Yeah.
I don't know, when was this book published?
In the 80s.
The
The original stories were coming out like late 80s, I think.
Late 80s.
But then I don't remember when they compiled them. But I like the, when I say it's a quick read, it's not like...
It was originally in mass paperback in 2007.
Well, that's when
the original text copyright was 1993.
Oh, 93. Okay, so early 90s. My bad. But yeah, I mean, as far as it's a quick read, it's not like,
it's an easy read.
It's easy, but, it still has, it's a good story.
Yeah, it's an adult novel.
Right. It's just, it's kind of...
I haven't read an adult novel in so long.
Down to earth, and, you can pick it up and read it. It's not overly dense. It's not...
No.
It's got a lot of, there's a lot of characters and stuff in there, but he's good at introducing the characters.
Yes.
And
he's good at making them distinct.
And not, you're not getting overburdened with like a whole long backstory behind everyone. That you gotta try to have the, a lot of other books have like the family histories and stuff published in the front or the back for you to reference and stuff.
You mean Game of Thrones?
Yeah, all that, and so. You can pick it up and it's like, oh, there's this goofy guy. Kudu. Yeah. Whatever, that weirdo.
Kudu.
And
Cock-a-doodle-doo.
Cock-a-doodle-doo there.
Go back to the
So yeah, I would say it was a 4 out of 5 if you're interested, if you've played the games or seen the show or something. I would definitely recommend giving the books a read. So
definitely. So yeah, if you enjoyed this special honeymoon episode of This Is Lit, we have one more coming your way while Casey is still on their honeymoon. We will have a different special guest next time, but she has been on the podcast before, so we'll keep it a surprise. So next time we will be reading A Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. So I'm really looking forward to that. I've heard good things about that book. And if you want to keep up with us, be sure to like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or you can visit our website at litliteraturepodcast.com if you're feeling very generous. We do have a Patreon where we do have special content for patrons. So Casey just got married. I am raising 2 small humans. So anything you guys do to kind of keep us on the air, we greatly appreciate. So, yeah, until then, we will see you next time. Cheers! Click.
Clack!
Thank you for listening to our podcast. For more information, visit us at litliteraturepodcast.com or check out our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. And remember, too much work and no vacation deserves at least a small libation. Cheers!